What is the hidden curse of being a people pleaser? You think you are buying peace, but in truth, you are selling your freedom. Today, we uncover a dark warning from Machiavelli himself, why the hunger to be loved leads not to safety, but to ruin. In this lesson, we solve the problem every people pleaser faces: how to escape the trap of endless approval and reclaim true power. Let us begin with a truth most men never dare confront. The desire to be liked is the most dangerous drug of all, stronger than gold, sharper than wine, and more enslaving than chains. This desire disguises itself as virtue. It whispers to you, be kind, be agreeable, be loved. And you obey because you believe love is power, but you are deceived. The people pleaser believes that to yield is noble, that to bend is wise, that to soften one's own will is the secret to harmony. They imagine themselves as peacemakers, as healers of conflict, as the glue holding together the fragile bonds of human vanity. Yet Machiavelli would sneer at such delusion, for he knew that the one who seeks to please all, pleases none, and in the attempt, becomes a slave to everyone's whims. Consider how this seduction begins. As a child, you discover that a smile earns you praise, a quiet nod earns you safety, a soft word shields you from punishment, and so you begin to learn that the path of least resistance, the art of pleasing, buys temporary comfort. But what begins as a trick for survival slowly grows into a disease of the spirit. You forget how to say no. You forget the sharpness of your own will. You begin to live not as yourself, but as a mirror reflecting the desires of others. Machiavelli warned rulers of this weakness. A prince, he wrote, cannot afford to be ruled by the need for approval. For approval is the most unstable currency of all. Today they cheer your name, tomorrow they curse it. The mob will lift you on their shoulders in triumph, then trample you in dust when their appetite changes. And yet, the people pleaser imagines himself safe, imagining that endless smiles will secure loyalty. He knows not that loyalty built on comfort is as thin as paper and burns as quickly. The seduction of pleasing others thrives because it feels righteous. It dresses itself in the costume of morality. You say to yourself, I am kind, I am selfless, I care for others. But beneath this mask lies the truth. You are afraid. You are afraid of rejection, of conflict, of standing alone against the will of the crowd. And so you clothe your fear in the robes of virtue and call it goodness. Yet it is not goodness. It is surrender. What is the price of this surrender? It is the death of authenticity. The people pleaser cannot speak with his own voice. He must borrow the voices of those he seeks to please. He cannot stand with his own convictions, for his convictions are but reflections of others' desires. He cannot walk his own path, for his feet are chained to the expectations of the crowd. Such a man may be admired on the surface, but he is hollow within a vessel filled with borrowed approval that leaks away with every passing day. In the court of power, this weakness is fatal. Imagine the prince who cannot bear to displease his advisors. He bends to their flattery, obeys their whispers, surrenders his judgment for the sake of their smiles. Soon, he is no longer a prince but a puppet. His throne may remain, but the strings are pulled by others. His crown may glitter, but it rests upon a bowed head. For the desire to please is not merely a weakness, it is an abdication of power. And outside the palace walls, in the lives of ordinary men and women, the curse is the same. The worker who nods at every request, the friend who never disagrees, the lover who sacrifices every boundary. They imagine they are preserving peace, but in truth, they are carving away their own strength piece by piece. Those they seek to please grow accustomed to their submission. They no longer see kindness. They see weakness. They no longer see loyalty. They see obedience. And soon, they demand more. The more you give, the less you are valued. Machiavelli's eye was sharp enough to see that power lies not in pleasing, but in commanding. He knew that men respect firmness more than softness, clarity more than compromise. Yet the people pleaser, seduced by the applause of temporary approval, sacrifices firmness for flattery. He cannot command, for he fears to offend. He cannot lead, for he fears to disappoint. And so, while he may gather smiles and handshakes, he gathers no respect, no authority, no true power. There is a lie that has deceived countless souls, a lie so seductive that even rulers have fallen prey to it. The lie is this, that kindness is armor, that pleasing others is protection, that if you are gentle enough, yielding enough, agreeable enough, no blade will ever strike you. This lie, this illusion of safety, is the very snare in which the people pleaser is caught. And Machiavelli, with his unflinching gaze, tore this illusion apart. The people pleaser believes that by softening his voice and bending his back, he earns a shield. He imagines that those around him, comforted by his submission, will protect him in return. He tells himself, if I never offend, I shall never have enemies. If I never resist, I shall never be struck down. But this fantasy ignores the true nature of men. For men are not governed by gratitude. They are governed by appetite. And appetites do not sleep because you feed them. They grow hungrier. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler who relies only on the goodwill of others builds his power on air, for goodwill lasts only until interests shift. Today they love you because you satisfy their needs. Tomorrow they will despise you when you no longer serve them. The people pleaser, in his desperation to avoid conflict, does not see that he has planted the seeds of betrayal. He thinks his kindness will bind loyalty, yet loyalty built on comfort is as fragile as glass, shattering the moment it is tested. Look closely at the pattern. The pleaser avoids confrontation, and for a moment there is peace. But in that peace, others learn something dangerous. They learn that this man can be bent without resistance. And once they know he can be bent, they will bend him further. The illusion of safety becomes the very reason he is exploited. What he thought was his shield becomes the flag that marks him as prey. Those who fear displeasing others end up surrounded by those who have no fear of taking advantage. Imagine a servant who always agrees, who never refuses. At first, his master calls him loyal, but soon the master sees him not as a man, but as a tool. He will be overworked, overlooked, discarded, for tools are not loved, they are used, and so it is with the pleaser. When you seek safety in surrender, you are not safe, you are useful. And usefulness is a dangerous foundation, for it lasts only until someone more useful appears. The illusion of safety blinds the pleaser to another truth, that the absence of conflict is not peace, it is silence, and silence can be shattered at any moment. You may hide behind compliance, but conflict will still find you. The rival will still strike. The betrayer will still deceive, for your weakness invites their ambition. A wolf does not spare the lamb because it is gentle. It devours the lamb because it is gentle. So too does the world devour the one who hides behind kindness as though it were armor. In the courts of princes, this truth is merciless. A ruler who believes that pleasing his subjects guarantees safety soon discovers that their love dissolves at the first sign of hardship. They cheer when he lowers their taxes. They curse when famine strikes. They praise his generosity today. They conspire against him tomorrow. He who trusts in the love of the crowd trusts in the waves of the sea, restless, shifting, impossible to hold. And yet, many fall into this trap, believing that safety lies in surrender rather than strength. The ordinary man suffers the same fate. The worker who believes that saying yes to every demand will shield him from dismissal finds himself exhausted and disposable. The friend who believes that endless sacrifice will keep betrayal at bay discovers he has built bonds of convenience, not loyalty. The lover who imagines that giving without boundary will guarantee affection awakens, one day abandoned. For affection without respect cannot endure. In every sphere of life, the illusion of safety blinds the pleaser to the reality of exploitation. What makes this curse so cruel is that the pleaser does not see it happening. He convinces himself that his sacrifices are working. He tells himself, "They stay with me because I am kind." He whispers, "They do not strike me because I am agreeable." But in truth, they stay because he is useful. And they do not strike because he has already laid down his arms. He mistakes the absence of visible enemies for the presence of security. He mistakes silence for loyalty. He mistakes obedience for love. Machiavelli's wisdom slices through this illusion with a cold blade. True safety is not bought with smiles, but with strength. Men respect those who can resist, those who can defend, those who can say no without trembling. Yet the people pleaser, addicted to approval, refuses to resist. He hands over his strength in exchange for the appearance of safety, and in doing so, he ensures that he has none. The world whispers a sweet lie, that to be loved is the highest form of power. From childhood, you are told to be likable, to win affection, to be adored, and because this sounds noble, you believe it. But Machiavelli, whose eyes pierced the illusions that blind ordinary men, revealed a darker truth. It is far safer to be feared than to be loved. For love, while pleasant, is frail. Fear, though harsh, is enduring. To understand this is to understand the very foundation of power. Consider love. It is warm, it is intoxicating, it fills the heart with sweetness, but it is also fickle. Love is tied to feelings, and feelings are bound to change. A man may love you when you give him what he desires, but his affection withers the moment you deny him. The pleaser does not see this. He believes that endless kindness will anchor love forever. Yet love anchored only in kindness is a ship tethered by a string. The smallest wind can set it adrift. What he calls loyalty is nothing more than appetite, and appetite never rests. Now consider fear. Fear is not sweet. It does not caress or comfort, but it is consistent. Fear binds men because it touches the part of them that seeks survival. Love calls to the heart, but fear seizes the gut. And when the heart and gut conflict, survival always wins. A man may waver in his affection, but he does not waver in his fear of consequence. Machiavelli knew this, and so he taught that a ruler who relies on love alone stands exposed. But a ruler who commands fear secures his throne even when affection fades. Let us bring this to the realm of the people pleaser. He seeks love above all else. He gives, he bends, he surrenders, hoping to be adored. And yes, he gathers smiles, applause, warm words. But what happens when the crowd no longer finds him useful? What happens when their appetites shift? They abandon him without hesitation. They betray him without guilt. For love without respect is not true love. It is convenience. And convenience is abandoned the moment it ceases to serve. The one who commands fear, however, never faces this fragility. He may not be adored, but he is respected. He may not gather applause, but he gathers obedience. His power does not rely on the whims of affection, but on the certainty of consequence. Men may not love him, but they dare not betray him. They may whisper in private, but they obey in public. And in the harsh theater of power, it is obedience that matters more than adoration. The illusion of the pleaser is to confuse love with loyalty. They believe that affection ensures allegiance. Yet history shows again and again that affection dissolves in crisis. Soldiers who once cheered their king desert him in battle if they feel no fear of punishment. Citizens who once adored their ruler turn against him when famine strikes. Friends who once praised your generosity abandon you when you have nothing left to give. Love cannot survive hardship. Fear can. This does not mean cruelty must be reckless. Machiavelli warned that a ruler should inspire fear without hatred. Hatred is dangerous because it breeds rebellion, but controlled fear, the kind born of respect, discipline, and consequence, is a shield. The wise ruler does not humiliate his people, but neither does he surrender to them. He ensures they know that betrayal carries a cost. In this balance lies true security. And in this balance lies the difference between the ruler who is abandoned and the ruler who endures. Think of the modern pleaser, the man or woman who sacrifices all boundaries in pursuit of affection. Their friends love them as long as they provide comfort. Their colleagues praise them as long as they carry extra burdens. Their partners adore them as long as they suppress their own desires. What happens when the pleaser grows weary? When he says no, suddenly the affection withers. The same people who once praised him turn cold, even hostile. Why? Because their affection was never respect. It was exploitation dressed as love, and exploitation cannot survive denial. And now imagine instead the one who establishes boundaries, who does not fear to displease, who commands respect even at the cost of affection. Such a person may not be universally loved, but they are not discarded. Their friends think twice before taking advantage. Their colleagues measure their requests carefully. Their partners may complain, but they know that their loyalty cannot be cheaply bought or easily lost. Here lies the true lesson of Machiavelli. To choose respect over affection, to choose fear over love, is to build power that endures beyond moods and beyond appetites. The pleaser lives in the illusion that endless affection will shield him. But when storms come, affection evaporates. The ruler, the leader, the man or woman who understands power, does not seek to be loved by all. They seek to be respected by all, even feared when necessary. For while love makes a man feel good, fear makes him secure. And when security is at stake, when survival hangs in the balance, there is no contest between the two. There is a curse that does not arrive with thunder, nor reveal itself in blood. It creeps instead like a shadow at dusk, growing longer, darker, until it swallows everything. This is the silent curse of the people pleaser, the slow erosion of self, the quiet death of power, the vanishing of identity under the weight of endless submission, and because it kills without noise, most do not notice it until nothing remains. The people pleaser does not wake one morning stripped of his will. No, the decay begins invisibly, one compromise at a time. A single refusal swallowed, a single truth silenced, a single boundary erased. Each moment seems small, harmless, even noble. He tells himself, it is better to bend than break, better to give than to cause conflict. Yet each time he bends, he loses a fragment of himself. One fragment becomes many, and soon, he is hollow, a shell of a man built only from the demands of others. Machiavelli understood that weakness seldom destroys a ruler in a single blow. It destroys him in whispers, in concessions, in the small betrayals of his own authority. The subjects ask for leniency, he yields. The nobles demand favor, he yields. His allies press him for gifts, exemptions, indulgences, he yields again. And each act of yielding feels harmless in the moment, but together they form a pattern. Authority bleeds away, respect drains, and the prince, once feared and respected, becomes a servant in his own court. This is the silent curse, not the sudden fall, but the slow decline. The same curse strangles ordinary lives. The worker who never says no begins to drown under tasks that are not his own. The friend who never asserts boundaries becomes the one everyone calls only when they need something. The partner who never speaks their desires becomes invisible in their own relationship. At first, this silence seems like peace, but in truth, it is rot. The pleaser believes he is holding everything together, yet in reality, he is being erased. And what is most terrifying is that those around him may not even notice the erasure, because they have grown so accustomed to his surrender. This curse is silent because it is disguised as virtue. The pleaser appears generous, humble, caring. To the outside world, he seems admirable. People praise his selflessness, his patience, his loyalty. Yet inside, he feels the weight of exhaustion, the bitterness of being unseen, the quiet resentment that grows with every sacrifice. He smiles while his spirit cracks. He gives while his reservoir runs dry, and no one notices, because the pleaser has trained them never to look. Over time, the curse deepens. What begins as sacrifice turns into identity. The pleaser forgets what he truly desires, because his desires have always been silenced. He forgets what he truly believes, because he has spoken only what others wanted to hear. He forgets even who he is, because his life has been lived as a reflection of others' demands. In this way, the curse does not simply weaken him, it consumes him. It replaces the sharp edges of his will with the dull surface of compliance. He becomes, in the end, not a man but a vessel, carried in whichever direction the crowd pushes him. Machiavelli would say that such a life is worse than defeat, for the defeated man at least has the dignity of having fought. The pleaser does not even resist. He lives in chains of his own making, mistaking them for garlands. He believes that by being agreeable, he has built security, but what he has built is emptiness, and emptiness cannot endure. The throne of a prince, the dignity of a man, the soul of a woman none can survive when they are endlessly bartered away for the shallow currency of approval. The silent curse is treacherous because it feels at first like strength. To endure without complaint, to give without question, to bend without protest, these are praised as virtues. But the wise see deeper. They know that silence is not always peace, that giving is not always noble, that bending is not always wise. Sometimes silence is cowardice. Sometimes giving is surrender. Sometimes bending is the slow breaking of the spine. The pleaser, blinded by the applause of others, cannot see that what he calls goodness is in truth the erosion of his own power. And what is the final stage of this curse? It is when the pleaser discovers that even his endless sacrifices cannot guarantee love. For those he has pleased for so long grow indifferent. They do not hate him. Hatred requires respect. They do not even betray him. Betrayal requires value. Instead, they forget him. They step over him as one steps over dust on the floor. And he, who gave everything for approval, is remembered by none. This is the fate of the pleaser consumed by the silent curse, not to fall in fire, but to vanish in silence. So you see, the path of the people pleaser is no path at all. It begins with the sweet seduction of approval. It hides behind the illusion of safety. It stumbles in the false promise of love, and it ends with the silent curse of self-erasure. This is the dark warning Machiavelli pressed into the ears of princes and common men alike. To seek love without respect is to invite ruin. To mistake kindness for power is to invite betrayal. To cling to approval is to surrender freedom. In this world, it is not the agreeable who endure, but the strong. Not the loved who survive, but the respected. And he who builds his life on pleasing others will find in the end that he has pleased everyone but himself.